Hi there, I'm Phil Wilkes. For my Capstone Project, we did a game called Escherreal, and we used Scrum for that process. So this video is kind of a look into how we use Scrum for that and how I did my job as the development director for the team. So first of all, what is Escherreal? Escherreal is a 3D puzzle platformer game centered in the world of MC Escher. You may or may not be familiar with his works. They usually involve all these weird perspectives, endless staircases, that sort of thing. If you want to read more about Escherreal and see more about the game we ended up producing, you can go to either escherreal.com or click over to the Games tab on my website, and there's a section devoted to the game more specifically. Now, more specifically for Scrum, our Scrum team is as follows. Our product owner team was primarily made up of our project lead and our design lead, who would just decide what needed to be done, break those up into tasks, and then we would take those into sprint planning, figure out what we could do within the week's time, and move forward. I, of course, was development director for the project, and our entire dev team was 15 people. That includes myself, the project lead, and the design lead. It was such a small project, everyone's always doing multiple things. I spent probably half my week doing development director specific stuff, checking in with the team, running daily Scrum, updating our Scrum wall, making sure tasks are getting done. And then the other half I was actually the primary level builder on the project. So everyone was doing whatever we needed to do to get the projects done. Now, the simple things about our Scrum process is our sprint duration was only 1 week. Standard Scrum guidelines specify between 2 and 4 weeks. We tried 2-week sprints for a period of time. Didn't really work out too well. The primary reason for that is because we were required by the faculty to give status update presentations on a weekly basis. So it just made sense for us to start the sprint and then work for a week and end it with our status update. And then that way we could take feedback from our own performance for the past week and feedback from the game, talk about all that in our sprint review, and then plan how to move forward for the next week from there. Our daily Scrum, we kept it to 15 minutes, despite having the whole team in daily Scrum at the same time. That worked out quite well for us because we were able to identify dependencies we may have missed and check in, see how everyone was working. And it also provided that sense of peer pressure that you kind of want to keep everyone motivated and on track. For project management tools, the school had provided Handsoft for us. It was already installed on our computers. We also used Grindstone and encouraged the use of that to track personal time while working on the project too. All of our official hourly upkeep information was done in Handsoft. Grindstone was, as I said, more of a personal tool for us to help ourselves. Now, go over our process. We pretty much stuck with vanilla Scrum, but I'll go through it anyway. So we had our product backlog of tests and features that we wanted to implement that our product owner team set aside. Then we would take those into sprint planning. Now, our sprint planning sessions, we split up into 3 groups. That was primarily done because of the way that the school separates out the different tracks. So you have art production and programming tracks in the school, and that's how most of our roles and tasks were divided out. We did often have small strike teams of multiple people, like producer, programmer, artist, to help tackle specific things like we want to get some proxy UI stuff thrown in there, so it needs to be designed and programmed and put in the game and all that good stuff. So after we did sprint planning with all those tracks, those tasks got put into our sprint backlog, and then from there we were able to do our estimations for those tasks and figure out what we could get done, what we had time to do in the sprint. So I'm going to talk about our estimations real quick. This is one of the things I would have liked to change in a way with what our process was. We originally chose hour estimations because it made the most sense to us. We started development on the project in January, and we were learning Scrum at the same time, so it just came more naturally than something like a story point would. Now, it was good in some ways, because we still had classes and homework for those classes to work on at the same time as this project. So our thought process was, if we've got a 40-hour work week, we're spending 20 hours, on class and homework, specific stuff, and we spend about 20 hours on the project. So that was the basis on which we planned everyone's sprints, where we'd have, try to plan 20 hours for everybody. The downside to that is because our mechanics were so strange to implement, especially the Infinispecs, we'd have these gargantuan tasks that we have no idea how long it's going to take to do them. And then on occasion, we found that, if we already had all the features that we wanted for the sprint, people were already committed to working on those. We'd have some people with less hours, and we found ourselves occasionally trying to add tasks or, maybe increase. I'm going to give you 4 hours of gameplay time just to play with the game and see if you can find any bugs. Like, more loose tasks like that we ended up adding on occasion. So I think story points might have helped that, because then we could compare the tasks relative to each other, and we wouldn't be so pressured on keeping track of everyone's hours that they worked in the week. Here's a snapshot of our Scrum wall. And after we got our estimations done, we started into the sprint. We kept Handsoft updated daily. I was kind of champion of that to make sure stuff was marked in progress or completed when it was done. We did our daily stand-ups every day, in which case we would all meet in front of the wall you see here, talk about what was being done, what was in progress, what was completed, and then the post-its would move along that wall as needed. Then at the end of the sprint, we had our status update presentation to the faculty. And then right after that, we all got together for a sprint review, in which, we talked about the status update, of course, the feedback that we got, what was valid and, useful feedback, what wasn't, what stuff we were already working on, they commented on, different things like that. We also talked about how the sprint went, what was still left on the board, if anything, and why those tasks didn't necessarily get done, or why certain tasks got done quicker than we expected, so people had extra time at the end of the sprint, which happened on occasion as well. Then we went into our sprint retrospective after that and just talked about ways we could improve our performance for the next sprint. We lost a lot of dev time in the project due to things like school holidays, spring break, summer break, that sort of thing. We all kind of committed to working hard, but then people were going out of town, and then communication breaks down because of the distance between people, and stuff ended up, falling through the cracks. And then, of course, we'd go back to our backlog, and any tasks that were remaining on the board, we put back in the backlog and reevaluated as due to their importance. That did happen on several occasions, that tasks would be pushed back even further because they just weren't that necessary to get, a presentable product for the next status update, and we'd start the cycle over again. Now, as far as data tracking on my end, more specifically, I kept a velocity chart in the room that I updated weekly on our performance. Now, if you look in on that chart, the first 6 sprints of the project was our vertical slice release. Now, we worked on the game from school starting in January through the end of February. We had basically 6 weeks of hard dev time to build a prototype that we could present at our vertical slice presentation. all 5 projects, all 5 capstone projects were presented at Vertical Slice, and that way the faculty and the industry professionals could then meet and vote on the projects that they deemed would be most successful and most doable with the team and resources that were available. Our project passed through Vertical Slice. One team did not, unfortunately. And then that team that did not pass through Vertical Slice, those members got broken up and added to the existing teams where they would fit best. So we got 3 developers out of that, one from each track, a producer, a programmer, and an artist. And then that's also the first time we tried 2-week sprints, as we were getting a little tired of the long weekly meetings trying to plan out everything for Vertical Slice. And that also happened to be around the time we had a break. So that big jump in the charts is due to having 3 additional developers, making our team 15, doing a 2-week sprint, so we're planning twice the amount of tasks for everybody. And then you see it kind of dip towards summer break there at the bottom.